The attackers surged again, 3 shadows cutting through the fog. Ashley pivoted low, the crack of a knife missing her ribs by inches. She used her heel, slamming into the man's knee, a satisfying pop before disarming him with a twist. The blade was hers now, gleaming wet under the dock's sodium lights. But she wasn't fighting to kill, not yet. Every strike she landed was measured, interrogative. Who sent you? Her rhythm screamed the question. The second assailant hissed. Something in Russian covering the first stumble. She caught only 2 words. Madrid, ghost. Her jaw tightened. They weren't here to win. They were here to remind Dot. Another wave came from the shadows, forcing her to flip behind a steel crate. Gunfire spat, sparks dancing off rust. She pressed, her back against the metal, steadying her breath. Their attack wasn't meant to end her. It was a delay. Curtain being pulled across the real stage, and then it hit her. David's apartment, downtown. He sat at his desk, laptop open. A line of code paused mid-run. He frowned. A soft ping echoed from his phone. Unknown number. It's just a single message. Madrid never sleeps. He blinked, confused. His pulse skipped. The phrase was familiar. Something Ashley had once muttered in passing, back when she thought he wasn't listening. A second sound, this one sharper. His kitchen window rattled. He rose slowly, barefoot on the hardwood. The city hum outside felt too quiet. Then, in the reflection of the glass, he saw it. A man already inside. A silhouette, broad shoulders, motionless, watching. Who? David's throat closed on the word. The man tilted his head, almost curiously, and in the dim light, David caught the impossible. The same scar along the jawline Ashley had once. Described when she spoke of the ghost in Madrid. It's the one who wasn't supposed to exist anymore. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, a phantom breathing in his space. Dockside Pier 9, Ashley snapped another attacker's wrist, blade clattering to the planks. Who sent you? She hissed. The man only laughed, bloody teeth showing. Not us. Him. She froze for half a breath. Her ears rang with the echo of her own paranoia. The ghost lived if he had David. This wasn't just a game anymore. She sprinted toward the edge of the dock, firing a stolen pistol into the air to scatter the last 2 assailants. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, but she had no time for police. No time for cleanup. Her only thought was David. If the ghost has him, the past isn't finished. It's only beginning. David's apartment, downtown. The silence pressed against David's ears like cotton. His figure in the living room didn't blink, didn't breathe. Loud enough to prove he was alive. Just stood watching. David swallowed hard. His voice cracked as he whispered, "What? What do you want?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he turned, slow as a pendulum swing, and placed something gently on the table. A silver lighter. Scratched, old. The kind Ashley had once left behind after a night on the rooftop, laughing about souvenirs from Madrid. David's stomach dropped. He knew it wasn't hers. This one was engraved. A single word. Ashdot. The man tapped it once with a gloved finger, then stepped back toward the shadows of the kitchen. David's instinct screamed, "Run," but his legs felt nailed to the floor dock. Then, as if punctuating the silence, his phone pinged again. Same unknown number. One flame lights the truth. Ask her. What burned? When he looked up, the figure was gone. Street Ashley driving. Lashley's hands were white on the steering wheel, its tires shrieking against the asphalt. Every red light blurred. She was already dialing David, but the call cut out before it. Rang, static, then silence. Her chest tightened. The ghost wasn't a story anymore. He was inside David's orbit. Inside her weakness. She swerved hard, nearly clipping a taxi. A memory tore open in her skull. Madrid, fire in the warehouse. Silhouette walking through smoke, her knife slipping on his blood before the roof caved. She knew he hadn't survived, but if he had, it meant everything since then had been under his gaze. David's apartment, living room. David finally broke free of paralysis, stumbling toward the table. His fingers hovered above the lighter. His chest heaved. It was still warm and just faintly. The scent of ash and smoke lingered in the air, too strong, too deliberate. His front door lock clicked. David spun, heart racing. Ashley burst inside, gun drawn, hair damp with fog and sweat. Her eyes scanned the room like a hawk before landing on David. Relief flickered, but died as soon as she saw the lighter in his hand. David looked at her, wide-eyed voice breaking. "Ashley, what the hell is going on? Who is he?" Ashley froze, every instinct screaming not to answer. The ghosts of Madrid weren't supposed to follow her here, but the lighter on the table whispered otherwise. David's apartment. Living room. Ashley didn't lower the gun right away. Her eyes locked on the lighter in David's trembling hand. And something raw cracked through her mask. Recognition, fear, rage, all in one flicker. David's voice came louder now, steadier, like he'd finally hit the point of no return. "Do you know him, don't you? It's the man that was here. He left this." He shook the lighter like a calling card. "Ashley, tell me." Ashley inhaled slow, grounding herself, then stepped forward. She didn't reach for him, not yet. "Kavit, listen to me. Whatever you saw tonight, whatever, walked into this room, it isn't who you think. It's a shadow, mistake I buried years ago." His brows knit. "Buried? What the hell does that mean?" Her throat tightened. The words clawed up, but she forced them down. "He's not ready. He'll see you as a monster before he sees the truth." So she slipped sideways, like she always did. "It means someone wants you to question me. Someone wants you to doubt. And they'll use every trick, old faces, old lies, old ghosts to make that happen." David stared at her, heart hammering. His gut screamed she wasn't lying, but she wasn't telling the whole truth either. Then the phone buzzed again on the table. Both of them froze. Another message lit up the screen. "One of you knows the fire. One of you knows the ash. Tonight, you'll know each other." Ashley's grip tightened on the gun until her knuckles whitened. David read the text, then looked back at her. His voice was barely a whisper now. "Fire, ash, that's you, Ashley, isn't it?" Her silence was louder than any confession. And outside, across the street, the figure stood once more, perfectly still. Watching the window, the air was so sharp it felt like glass in their throats. David clutched the lighter like a lifeline, the tiny metal weight burning in his palm. Ashley stood frozen, her gun half lowered, her chest rising, and falling in clipped, controlled breaths. Finally, David broke it. "Don't just stand there, Ash. Tell me what this is. Tell me why a man I've never seen is standing outside my home, leaving your past on my table." Ashley's jaw flexed. She wanted to tell him everything. The truth was a knife. Once unsheathed, it could never go back. "You wouldn't understand." David's laugh cracked in disbelief. "Try me." Her eyes flashed. "If I tell you, David, you don't get to unknow it. You don't get to walk back into your normal life. Sip coffee tomorrow morning and pretend." This she jabbed the gun toward the window, toward the shadow watching them, "isn't real. You will live with it. You will bleed with it." David swallowed hard. His voice shook, but he didn't back down. "Then bleed with me. Don't shut me out." For the first time, her gun hand trembled. She lowered it, slowly, deliberately. And in the dim apartment light, he saw the sheen of fear in her eyes, not of the ghost, not of danger, but of him knowing her, then dash crack. The window shattered inward. David dove instinctively, dragging Ashley with him as shards of glass rained. Across the carpet, a bullet punched into the wall where her head had been. Ashley rolled first, snapping her gun up toward the broken window. But the street below was empty. The figure was gone. The only sound was David's ragged breathing, his hands still gripping, her arms refusing to let go. Ashley's mind raced, a sniper shot, not meant to kill, but to warn, to accelerate the spiral, to force her hand with David. She shoved free, scrambling to her feet. "We have to move now." David stood shakily. Blood streaked on his forearm where glass had cut deep. He held her gaze, pained but resolute. "I'm not leaving until you tell me the truth." Ashley stared at him, torn between fury and dread. The ghost had drawn first blood, and David had just drawn a line of his own. The room smelled of gunpowder and dust, the curtains flapping like torn sails through the jagged hole in the glass. David's arm bled freely, drops spattering the floorboards. But he didn't flinch, didn't even reach for the cut. His eyes never left Ashley. "Ash," his voice was low, urgent, shaking. "You're bleeding on the inside. Ah, and it's killing me not knowing why. Just tell me." Ashley pressed her back against the wall, gun still raised toward the window, as if the ghost might reappear. Her shoulders rose and fell in a shallow rhythm, but her face looked hollow, the mask slipping. "David." Her voice cracked in a way he'd never heard. "The man you saw. He's not random. He's not a stalker. He's a ghost I created." David froze. "What do you mean, you created?" Ashley let out a bitter laugh, so small it was almost a choke. "You think I've always been this? Shadow with a gun, living out of corners?" "No, I was." She stopped herself, dragged a breath, then spat it out. "I was part of something, years ago, before this life. I walked into fire, and when I walked out, I carried him with me, supposed to die. And now he wants me to." Its confession hung in the air like smoke. David's chest tightened. He stepped closer despite himself, ignoring the sting in his arm. "Ashley, look at me." Her eyes lifted, sharp and vulnerable at once. "You're not alone in this," he said, firm, steady, each word deliberate. "You don't have to run from me. Not anymore." Her lips parted, almost in disbelief, almost in fear. She wanted to shove him back to shield him from the hurricane she knew was coming. But her body betrayed her. For just a flicker of a second, she leaned into the space between them. Distant sirens wailed. Closer than before. Ashley's head snapped toward the window, her softness vanishing like a blade sheathed. She grabbed David's uninjured wrist. "They'll be here soon. And when they come, it won't be to save us. It'll be to bury us." She yanked him toward the door. David stumbled but followed, his hand gripping hers tighter. "Then we face it together." Ashley's silence was answer enough. Moments later, their footsteps echoed down the stairwell, quick, sharp, desperate. The flicker of the emergency light painted Ashley's face in jolting shadows, half terror. David stumbled once, catching himself against the wall, his blood leaving smears on the cracked paint. "Ashley," he hissed, breath ragged. "We need a plan, not just running." She didn't answer at first. Her jaw was locked, her grip on. His wrist unyielding. Every second was calculation. How many exits? How many eyes? How much time before the net closed, then dash snap, the bulb above them shattered. Both froze mid-step. The stairwell dropped into darkness. David's breath hitched. "That wasn't I know," Ashley whispered, pulling her gun free, her stance widening. Her voice was low, venomously Stockholm. "He's here, from above." The faintest drag of a boot. A shadow cutting the thin sliver of light from the landing window. The ghost. David reached for Ashley's arm. "We can't fight him in the dark." Ashley's eyes flicked toward the landing below. Only one option left. She pressed the gun into David's hand. "Shocking him. You'll shoot straighter than me with that arm," she said, already pulling. A slim blade from her boot. "What?" His voice cracked. "Ashley!" "I'm not quiet." Her tone was ice. "This is what he wants. Me cornered. Panicked. But he's forgetting one thing." David swallowed hard. "Ah!" Ashley leaned. Close, her whisper brushing his ear like fire. "He's still human. And humans bleed." Before David could argue, she shoved him down the stairs and lunged upward into the dark. Blade flashing once in the emergency glow, the stairwell erupted with a crash metal against metal. A grunt, the shudder of two bodies colliding in a chokehold, of violence. David, gripping the gun with trembling hands, stumbled onto the next landing, torn between firing blind into the dark and charging back up to her above. Ashley's voice cut through, raw, strained, but steady. "David, run. David?" Froze on the landing, chest heaving, the gun slick in his palm. Ashley's command still rang in his ears. Run. But every fiber of him rebelled above. The stairwell shook with violence, boots scraping concrete, the guttural impact of fists, the hiss of Ashley's blade cutting air. Then a sharp gasp. Her gasp. David's grip tightened. He turned, feet dragging him upward instead of down at the third flight. His breath caught Ashley, and the ghost were locked in a vicious knot of limbs. The ghost's masked face loomed inches from hers, his hand crushing her wrist against the wall. Her blade clattered to the steps. Ashley's eyes flicked down, David saw the gun in his hands, for a fraction of a heartbeat. Silence held them. The ghost turned his head toward David, the mask gleaming under the sickly stairwell light. Ashley used the distraction. With a roar that was more fury than fear, she snapped her forehead into his nose. The crunch echoed. Blood sprayed across the mask's lower edge. He staggered. She tore free. "Shoot him, David." David raised the gun, hands trembling. The ghost steadied himself, eyes like coals burning through the slits. He didn't charge. He just stood there waiting. The pressure in David's chest grew unbearable. His finger hovered on the trigger. "Do it!" Ashley's voice cracked. More plea than order now. But David froze. The ghost tilted his head, almost in amusement, then sprang forward, faster than David's reflexes. The shot went wide. Exploding concrete, the gun flew from David's hand. The ghost's arm wrapped around Ashley's throat again, dragging her backward up the steps, her heels scraping against the concrete. Her scream tore through the stairwell. Hoarse and raw, "David, go." The last thing David saw before stumbling back down the flight was Ashley's blade, her fingers clawing for it, her body half lifted, half choked, being hauled toward the roof door. The ghost didn't want him. Not yet. He wanted her. Rooftops seconds later, the night air hit Ashley like a slap, cold, sharp, unyielding. The ghost dragged her through the door, flinging her onto the gravel roof. She rolled, coughing, fingers clawing for breath. The city stretched out in glittering silence around them, uncaring. He stepped into the moonlight. Blood dripped from beneath the mask where her headbutt had cracked him. He adjusted his stance, calm, patient. Like a predator with all the time in the world, Ashley forced herself up, chest heaving, ribs screaming with every inhale. Her blade gleamed at her feet. She scooped it up, crouching low. The ghost tilted. His head, slowly, deliberately. He unholstered a curved hunting knife of his own. Two predators mirrored below them, faint and desperate. David's voice echoed up the stairwell. Ashley? She didn't dare answer. The ghost moved first. He lunged, knife flashing. Ashley twisted, steel singing as their blades met with a violent clang. Sparks spat. She shoved, pivoted, but he was heavier, stronger. His knife arced again, missing her cheek by a whisper. Why her? Ashley snarled between blows, her words guttural. Why me? No reply, just the mask, silent, impenetrable. Their fight became brutal. Rhythm step, clash, slash, gasp. Her arm burned. Her lungs begged for air. He pressed her back toward the ledge. Boot-grinding gravel, knife-slicing arcs of silver in. The moonlight then dash crack. Ashley's blade snapped, jagged steel in her trembling hand. The ghost paused. He almost seemed to savor it. Ashley's gaze flicked behind him the door. David's silhouette appeared, staggering, weaponless, helpless. David, no, she screamed, the ghost whirled, throwing a knife-hand strike into David's chest. David slammed against the frame, wind blasted from his lungs. Ashley used that heartbeat. She hurled the broken blade at the ghost's mask. It spun end over end, slicing a long, ragged tear across his cheek. He roared an animal's sound-grabbing. At the mask as blood poured, Ashley grabbed David, shoving him toward the exit. But the ghost wasn't done. His hand shot out, catching Ashley's hair, yanking her back with brutal force. David turned just in time to see the rooftop. Like glint on the ghost's raised knife, Ashley, on her knees, her scream tearing into the night, the knife arcing down. The knife came down, Ashley's instincts snapped. She twisted sideways, the blade raking across her shoulder instead of her throat. Blood sprayed, searing pain ripping through her. She screamed, but she was alive. David, half stumbling, threw himself forward. His shoulder crashed into the ghost's ribs with desperate force. All three went sprawling across the gravel. The knife skittered, clattering dangerously close to the ledge. The ghost recovered first, trolling like a trained fighter. Springing up, mask cracked and bloodied. His fury radiated like heat. Ashley, gasping through the agony, forced herself upright. Her vision blurred, but her hand found a length of rusted pipe near the rooftop antenna. She gripped it, knuckles white. David staggered in front of her, shielding her with his broken body. He was trembling but defiant. "You'll have to kill me first," David rasped. The ghost tilted his head at him, almost curious. Then, without warning, he surged forward again. Ashley's scream ripped the night. She swung the pipe like a bat. It cracked against the side of the ghost's skull. The impact jolted through her bones. The mask split further, one side crumbling. A way to reveal a sliver of his face beneath scarred eyes burning. Lips curled in something between rage and madness. He didn't fall, but he staggered. Ashley swung again, fueled by terror and adrenaline. The pipe smashed into his jaw, then his shoulder, then finally his temple. He dropped to one knee, swaying, his knife hand twitching toward the weapon near the ledge. Ashley planted her boot on his wrist and stomped. The knife flew into the darkness below. The ghost collapsed against the rooftop edge. Dazed but not unconscious, blood spilling freely, for the first time. Ashley saw his eyes human. Not the monster she had imagined. Cold, calculating, but human. She trembled, pipe raised above her head for the final strike. David's voice broke behind her, hoarse and pleading. "Ashley, don't, he's done. We have to go." Her pulse thundered. The ghost was watching her, lips curling faintly, as if daring her to finish it. The city lights blinked below. The night wind whipped her hair, and Ashley froze, torn between killing him or leaving him behind. Ashley's arms shook above her head, the pipe heavy and slick with blood. Every instinct screamed at her to end it, to silence this ghost forever. But David's voice cut through the roar of adrenaline. "Ashley, look at me. Not him. Me. Her." Gaze snapped to him. His face was pale, streaked with blood and exhaustion, but his eyes, steady, pleading. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of losing her to the same darkness that hunted them. Ashley's grip faltered. The pipe trembled. The ghost, half unmasked, bleeding, broken, let out a low, rattling laugh. "You don't have it in you," he rasped, voice jagged through the ruined mask. "It's why she'll always win. You'll never be free." Words slid under her skin like poison. Rage surged, bright and wild. Her muscles coiled to bring the pipe down, but David's hand touched hers. Weak, trembling, but firm enough to stop her. "You're not like them, Ash. Don't let him make you into her." Silence held. The city hummed far below. The ghost's chest heaved with shallow, ragged breaths. his smirk faint but defiant. Ashley's jaw clenched. She dropped the pipe. It clanged against the concrete, rolling away into the shadows. Then rot in your master's shadow, she hissed, voice shaking with fury and restraint. The ghost's smirk faltered. Just for a heartbeat. Ashley grabbed David's arm, hauling him toward the rooftop door. They stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind them, leaving the ghost crumpled by the ledge, blood painting the night. Dark stairwell descent, every step down was agony. Ashley's shoulder bleeding freely. David barely holding consciousness. But she moved with a kind of raw determination, half carrying, half dragging him. David whispered through clenched teeth, his voice cracking. You saved me. Ashley pressed her forehead to his for a fleeting second in the dark. Her breath shuddered. No, you saved me. The sound of sirens bled faintly through the city air, growing closer. Not for them yet. But the net was tightening. Ashley knew this wasn't over. The ghost was alive. Mrs. Westwood's game was still spiraling. Lucas's betrayal lingered, like a shadow in her chest. But for now David was in her arms. Alive. And she would burn the whole city before she let anyone take him from her again. Ashley's arms burned. David's weight dragged heavier with every step, but she refused to let go. The streets behind them buzzed with sirens, the pulse of the city alive with their hunters' whispers. She found refuge where no one sane would look, an old train yard. Rusted tracks and skeletal carriages swallowed by weeds. She shoved open the creaking door of a forgotten caboose, easing David inside. The air was thick with dust and oil. But at least it was quiet. Ashley tore strips from her ruined shirt, pressing them hard against David's wound. He hissed, his back arching. Stay with me, she whispered fiercely, her voice cracking as her hands worked. Don't you dare leave me now. His eyes flickered open, glassy but locked on her. You sound like you care? A broken laugh escaped her throat, half relief, half despair. She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his damp hair. You idiot. I care more than I should. That's why this hurts so damn much. For a long moment, neither moved. Just the sound of his shallow breaths, her frantic heartbeat, and the distant hum of the city that wanted them dead. Then a snap. Somewhere outside, gravel shifting under deliberate footsteps. Ashley froze, every nerve sparking alive through the crack. In the rusted window, a silhouette passed between the cars. Not police, not random strangers. Hunters. The ghost hadn't been the only one sent tonight. Ashley's blood ran cold. She reached for the bloodied pipe she'd dragged with them, her knuckles white around it. She looked down at David barely conscious, but watching her with steady eyes. Don't move, she whispered, more a prayer than an order. The door of the carriage rattled. A hand tested the latch. They weren't safe yet, not even close. The latch gave way. The shriek of rust. Ashley was already moving. The pipe swung in a vicious arc the moment the door cracked open, smashing into the intruder's jaw. A sharp crunch echoed, followed by a strangled cry. The man staggered back, but more shadows spilled in behind him. 2, 3, 4. Ashley gritted her teeth. Of course. First lunged again, knife flashing. She pivoted, caught his wrist, and drove the pipe into his ribs. He folded, but another seized her arm, yanking her back. The knife scraped past her cheek, close enough to sting. Ashley slammed her forehead into his nose. Bone cracked. Blood spattered her face, but she didn't stop. She twisted free, slammed the pipe down on his temple, and he collapsed like a sack of stone. The third attacker darted inside. Younger, quicker. His boots pounded the metal floor as he closed in on David. No! Ashley screamed. She hurled the pipe, spun end over end, striking his shoulder with a dull thud. Stumbled, knife clattering across the carriage floor. Stopping inches from David's outstretched hand, the fourth man rushed her. Bigger than the others, a glint of chain in his grip. He swung, and the links lashed her arm, tearing skin. Pain exploded white-hot, but she didn't fall. Ashley dropped, low, sweeping her leg out. He toppled, slamming hard against the edge of a rusted bench. Before he could rise, she snatched his own chain, wrapped it around his throat, and pulled until his boots stopped thrashing. Silence. Her chest heaved. Vision blurred, the copper taste of blood sharp on her tongue. 1, 2, 3, 4. All down, Ashley staggered back to David's side. Her arms shaking, body buzzing with adrenaline. She touched his cheek. It's over, for now. But even as she said it, her ears caught something beyond the carriage. Engines, low, steady, growing closer. Not for men, not hunters. Something bigger. The ground began to tremble. Ashley froze. Chain still slick in her hands. Outside the shattered carriage windows. Beams of white light cut through the mist searchlights, sweeping across rusted steel and broken tracks. Engines growled. Heavy, organized, deliberate. David's head rolled. Weakly against her shoulder, Ash. His voice was a rasp. That's not scavengers. No, it wasn't a convoy. 3 armored trucks, matte black, rolling slow between the abandoned engines. Soldiers spilled out of the back, boots slamming onto gravel in perfect unison. Their helmets glinted, their rifles gleamed. Ashley's throat tightened. These weren't thugs. These were cleaners, the kind that never left survivors. One of the beams locked onto the carriage. A voice boomed through a megaphone, calm, commanding, merciless, target confirmed. Sector secured, terminate both. Ashley's pulse hammered. The pipe was gone. The chain was useless. David could barely stand, but her eyes darted, searching, always searching. A rusted service ladder clung to the far side of the yard wall, half hidden in shadow. 20 feet of open ground between them and it. Wide open, lit like a stage by the sweeping lights. Her grip tightened on David's arm. We move now. Bullets tore into the carriage before the word left her lips. Sparks exploded from steel. Glass rained down the entire structure, shaking under the assault. Ashley dragged David, stumbling, diving through the opposite door as the wall of gunfire shredded everything behind them. They hit gravel hard, rolling, smoke and dust choking the air. Shouts, orders, boots pounding after them. Ashley's lungs burned. But her body moved on instinct, dragging him toward the ladder, toward the only chance they had. She could feel the red dot of a scope pass across her shoulder. She could hear the click of safeties, snapping off in the dark. And she knew they had seconds, maybe less. The searchlights pinned them like insects. Bullets chewed the ground at their heels, ricocheting off rusted steel, spitting sparks. Ashley shoved David forward, her own body taking the brunt of the momentum, dragging him toward the ladder. Come on, move. David stumbled, his legs. Folding, his shoulders slammed into her ribs, knocking the breath from her, but she hauled him back up with a grunt. The metallic temps of blood filled the air, hot and choking. A soldier's shout cracked across the yard. Contact north wall. Ashley didn't look back. She knew what she'd see, rifles rising, muzzles glinting. The ladder loomed closer 5 feet. 4, she pushed David hard, slamming his hands against the rungs. Climb, don't stop. I can't, you can. She barked, grabbing his belt and shoving him upward. Rounds ripped the gravel around her boots, one punching sparks inches from her calf. A sting lanced across her thigh, but she didn't dare stop to check. She grabbed the rung under David's, hauling herself up, muscles screaming, adrenaline drowning the pain. A spotlight locked on them. The beam burned hot against her skin. Target. Acquired fire at will. Ashley's jaw clenched. Not like this. Her hand shot out, yanking a hanging steel chain from the side of the wall. With every ounce of fury left in her, she hurled it toward the light. The chain clattered against the housing, sparks exploding. the beam jerking wild just as gunfire erupted again. Bullets slammed into concrete instead of flesh. Dust filled the air. David climbed inch by inch, groaning, blood dripping from his arm and trailing down the ladder. Ashley pressed herself close to the rungs, shielding him with her body, dragging herself higher. The top of the wall was just ahead. 10 feet. 8. Then a deafening thud shook the yard. Ashley's head whipped around. One of the armored trucks had swung its turret, the barrel leveling at their section of wall. Her stomach dropped. They weren't trying to shoot them down anymore. They were going to erase the whole wall. Ashley's eyes widened as the armored truck's turret locked. David faster, he clawed at the rungs, but his strength was gone. His fingers slipped, boots scraping metal. Ashley shoved from below, muscles burning. The thunderclap hit. Boom. World shattered. The wall convulsed beneath them, a violent wave of stone and rebar erupting outward. The blast punched the air from Ashley's lungs, hurling her sideways. Her grip tore free. For one impossible second, she hung suspended, David's bloodied hand still reaching above her. Her body weightless in the firelit night. Then gravity won. She slammed against the wall, ribs screaming, fingers clawing for anything. A shard of twisted rebar snagged her glove, catching, holding. Pain shot up her arm, but she didn't let go. Chunks of concrete rained around her, thundering into the yard. Soldiers ducked, some thrown off their feet. The searchlight died, swallowed. In dust and sparks, David dangled above, one arm hooked over the top ledge. His voice was hoarse, broken. "Ashton, don't you dare!" She gritted her teeth, forcing her battered body upward, hand by trembling hand. The rebar screeched as she pulled free, scraping flesh, but she hauled herself higher. Her vision swam blood, dust, smoke. Every breath tasted like fire. And then her palm found his wrist. For a heartbeat, they just hung there. 2 shadows on a collapsing wall, the roar of battle below. "On 3, she rasped. "On 3, David echoed, his voice shaking. They heaved together. Muscles tore, lungs burned until, with a final desperate surge, Ashley flung herself over the top beside him. They landed hard on gravel, coughing, limbs tangled. The yard. Below was chaos, soldiers shouting, trucks repositioning, floodlights sweeping the smoke. But up here, just beyond the ruined wall, stretched the skeletal maze of the train yard's outer scaffolding. A labyrinth of shadows and escape routes. Ashley rolled onto her side, forcing herself up. "We're not done yet. Move." David's bloody hand found hers again, weak but unyielding. Together, they disappeared into the dark. Metal groaned under their boots as they staggered across a high catwalk. The lattice of steel beams above the yard rattled with each step. Every clang too loud in Ashley's ears. Below. The yard was alive with chaos, soldiers swarming through smoke, floodlights sweeping like hungry eyes. Orders barked. Dogs barked. Louder. The armored truck's turret groaned, rotating, searching. Ashley gripped David's arm tight to steady him. His wound was bleeding worse now, soaking through her sleeve. "Stay with me," she hissed. He coughed, voice shredded. "Not going anywhere." The lie trembled in his breath. A light cut across the scaffolding, grazing them. Ashley shoved him flat against the steel grating, pressing herself over him as the beam washed past. Her heartbeat slammed in her chest, too close, too close. Voices rose from below. Movement. Catwalks. Cut them off at the tower. Ashley swore under her breath. She scanned the maze, a headrail lines, cranes, a half-collapsed control tower leaning against the stars. That was their only chance. "David Tower, can you run?" He managed a nod. Weak, but willing, she pulled him up, slinging his arm over her shoulders. They moved fast, weaving through the scaffolding as bullets sparked off metal. Sparks rained, pinging in the dark. The whole structure shivered under the gunfire. The control tower loomed, closer, broken glass, rusted ladders, an open hatch at its base. Sanctuary or trap, it didn't matter. They had no choice. Ashley hauled David toward it every step, a war against the weight of his body and the fire in her lungs. Floodlights converged, beams chasing their shadows across the steel. Then explosion of gunfire tore into the scaffolding ahead. Steel shrieked. A section of catwalk collapsed, dropping into the yard below with a thunderous crash. Ashley froze. Inches from the gap, the void yawning between them and the tower. Behind them, boots thundered closer. David's head sagged against her shoulder. "Go! Leave me!" Her jaw clenched. She looked at the gap, then at him, then back at the soldiers swarming. "No," she whispered fiercely. "We go together." Her eyes locked on a dangling cable swaying just beyond the edge. A dangerous idea sparked. She tightened her grip on David's waist. "Hold on to me." His eyes widened. Psh! But she was already running. Ashley sprinted the last few steps, dragging David with her, boots rattling the groaning steel. The gap yawned in front of them, 30 feet of empty. Air, rail, yard lights, blazing below. "Hold on," she shouted, and without giving him a chance to argue, she launched them both into the void. Wind tore at her face. The cable whipped in front of her. She let go with one hand, fingers clawing catch. Her grip seized the cable, metal burning her. Palm raw. Their momentum wrenched her shoulder nearly from its socket. David's weight dragged her down, and for a terrifying second her fingers slipped. "Don't you dare let go!" She roared. Voice raw. David, half delirious, clutched her with what strength he had left. Blood streamed down his side, staining. Her jacket dripping into the darkness. Bullets cracked past them, sparks kicking from steel. The soldiers' shouts rose behind their hanging. "Take the shot!" Ashley's teeth ground together. With every ounce of strength she had left, she swung them, the cable groaning, until momentum carried them close to the tower. She let go at the peak of the swing. They slammed into rusted metal with bone-jarring force. Ashley's back exploded with pain, David's body nearly slipping from her grasp. Somehow she hooked her arm through a rung of the tower ladder. They dangled there, trembling, breathless, alive. "Still with me?" She gasped, forehead pressed against his dot. His lips twitched in something like a smile. "Always." Voices roared. Below, floodlights swung upward, blinding her. More bullets pinged the steel. Ashley gritted her teeth, hauling David up the ladder rung by rung, every muscle screaming. The tower groaned, swaying under their weight above. The hatch gaped open. Into shadow. The only way forward. And as she shoved David through the hatch, she realized someone was already inside. A silhouette waited in the darkness. Ashley shoved David through the hatch first, gritting against the pain as she hauled herself in after him. The hatch slammed shut beneath her boots, the clang echoing up the steel ribs. Her chest heaved. David collapsed against the floor, coughing, his hand pressed hard against his bleeding side. Then Ashley's eyes adjusted. The figure stood just a few feet away, motionless, a silhouette outlined by the faint glow of control panels and emergency lights. Broad shoulders, weapon slung lazily in one hand. Ashley's pistol snapped up instantly. "Don't move." The stranger raised a free hand, calm. His voice carried a rough edge, but not hostile. "You're late." Ashley's heart stuttered. That wasn't the voice of the soldiers hunting. The mitt was familiar. The figure stepped closer, the shadows peeling back. His face caught the pale light, stubbled jaw, scar running across his temple. Eyes sharp but tired. David stirred, blinking through the haze. Recognition flickered. "Marcus?" Ashley froze. "Marcus is dead." The man gave a humorless smile. "Not dead, buried. There's a difference." Ashley kept her aim steady, though her pulse roared in her ears. David tried to push himself upright, grimacing through the pain. "Marcus. Can't be." Marcus cut him off with a low chuckle, eyes flicking between them like a man savoring a secret. "You think Mrs. Westwood buries people without leaving a shovel in their hand? She thought she buried me. She was wrong." Ashley's finger tightened against the trigger. If you're working for her, I'll put you down right now. Marcus tilted his head, smirk, faint but sharp. If I was working for her, you'd already be in a body bag. He let the rifle drop with a clang, kicking it a few feet away in a show of disarmament. I didn't come here to finish you, Ashley. I came because the board's not the only predator in this game. Ashley's jaw set, suspicion hard in her eyes. What do you want? He stepped closer, lowering his voice, until it was a growl that seemed meant only for her leverage. And you're the only one who knows how to get it. David coughed, forcing his voice through the strain. Why help us? After all these years, why now? Marcus glanced at him, then back at Ashley. Because Westwood thinks you're her weapon. But I know better. You're her undoing. The words hung like smoke in the dim mechanical hum of the tower. Ashley didn't lower her gun. Not yet. Ashley's gun didn't waver. Her eyes locked on Marcus's every breath. You talk like you know me, she said, her voice ice. But I don't trust ghosts. Prove you're not here to finish what they started. Marcus's smirk faded. He studied her like he was weighing whether she deserved the truth. Then, slowly, he reached into his jacket. Ashley stiffened, ready to fire, but he pulled out a small, battered device, tossed it onto the floor between them. A communicator. Its screen flickered alive, showing. Encrypted logs, Westwood's kill order, Marcus said evenly. Targeting you. Targeting him. Kay nodded at David. But not by the soldiers outside. By someone inside her circle. Someone you'll never see coming. Ashley's eyes narrowed as she crouched to snatch the device, still keeping Marcus in her sights. She scrolled, her throat tightening at the signatures in the logs. The orders weren't fake. David rasped, his face pale but eyes sharp. Why? Why give this to us? What's your endgame? Marcus crouched too, his scar catching the dim light. His voice dropped into something almost conspiratorial. My endgame. Westwood falls. But I don't have the reach anymore. You do. Ashley studied him for a long, tense beat. Finally, she lowered the pistol slightly. Then you'll prove it, she said. Get us out of this tower alive. After that, we'll talk. Marcus's lips curled into the faintest of grins. Fair enough. He rose, grabbed his discarded rifle, and slung it back into place with casual precision. Then he glanced up at the steel skeleton around them. Follow me, but stay close. The tower is wired with more than cameras. Ashley exchanged a look with David, helping him to his feet. David's whisper brushed her ear. Can we trust him? Her grip tightened on David's arm. No, she whispered back. But right now, he's the only devil pointing the gun away from us. The three of them disappeared deeper into the humming guts of the tower. The stairwell ended in a narrow steel corridor that hummed with power. Thick cables lined the walls, pulsing faintly as though the tower itself were alive. Red motion sensors blinked in rhythmic sequence, tracking the slightest movement. Marcus raised a hand, stopping Ashley. And David cold. Don't move, he muttered. He stepped forward carefully, reaching into a pouch and pulling out a small, flat piece of metal. With practiced precision, he slid it beneath one of the sensor beams. A sharp crackle hissed through the air, then silence. Infrared grid, Marcus said quietly. Walk through it without a bypass. You'll fry from the inside out. David leaned against Ashley, his face pale. This place isn't just an office tower. Marcus gave a low chuckle. No, it's Westwood's hunting ground. She doesn't. Just watch her enemy. She traps them. Ashley's jaw tightened as she followed Marcus's lead, guiding David through each carefully cleared step. Her eyes swept the corridor, catching faint glimpses of hidden cameras tucked into vents, disguised as bolts, even woven into the cables. She's watching us, Ashley whispered. Marcus's gaze flicked upward at the same time. His voice carried an edge. Good. Let her. She needs to know her grip's slipping. A faint hum grew louder the deeper they went. The corridor opened into a circular chamber. At the center stood a column of glass and steel, cables snaking into it from every direction. Its core glowed, faintly blue, throbbing like a heartbeat. David's eyes widened despite his weakness. That's not just a server. Arcus nodded. No, that's the Nexus. Every camera, every drone, every file Westwood keeps it flows through here. This is her brain. Ashley's breath caught. The realization hit fast and hard. If they destroyed this, Westwood's reach could shatter. But her voice stayed low, steady, and the traps. Marcus's smirk returned, just faintly. Let's just say the closer we get to cutting her off, the sharper her teeth get. Behind them, a faint metallic click echoed down the corridor. Ashley spun instantly. Gun up. A drone emerged from the shadows, black and angular, its red eye glowing as it hovered. Then another and another, swarm filling the hallway there. Hum rising into a mechanical roar. Marcus swore under his breath. She's not just watching anymore, she's sending her hounds. Ashley's finger tightened on the trigger. David, forcing himself upright, whispered hoarsely, "We hold them off or we never reach the Nexus." The first drone lunged forward, its rotors slicing the air like knives. Ashley fired one clean shot, sparks showering as it spiraled into the floor. But two more zipped in immediately, weaving erratically to confuse her aim. Marcus dropped low, flicking a device from his belt. He slammed it against the wall, an EMP charge the size of a fist. A pulse of blue light surged out, frying 3 drones mid-flight, but the rest adapted, scattering up to the ceiling. They're learning, Marcus growled. Reloading, Ashley yanked David behind the Nexus column, shielding him with her body as bolts of electric fire spat from the drones. We don't have time for this, she snapped. David's weak hand pressed against the glowing core, his voice trembling but determined. Ashley, Marcus, this Nexus sits running on a quantum lattice. You don't just destroy it with bullets, you overload it. Ashley turned to him, half in disbelief. You know how I can? I'll need 30 seconds at that terminal. He gestured toward a console across the chamber, lit with a cascade of green codes streaming too fast for the eye to follow. Marcus's jaw clenched. 30 seconds in drone fire is a lifetime. Ashley's eyes hardened. Then we make it 1. She burst from cover, gun blazing, her movements sharp. Precise every shot, taking down another drone, but still the swarm pressed in. Sparks and debris rained from the ceiling as the machines retaliated. Marcus barreled into the chaos, swinging a combat knife like a blade of light. P.S. He hooked one drone out of the air, slammed it against the floor, and jammed its own rotor into another. David staggered toward the console, fingers shaking as he entered command strings faster than his body wanted to allow. Sweat dripped down his face as the lattice responded with angry flickers. The swarm screamed louder. Ashley's clip ran dry. She ducked, slamming a fallen drone against the wall until it cracked, then hurled its sparking remains into the air as a makeshift grenade. The explosion ripped through 3 more. Marcus roared as he was clipped across the shoulder, blood spraying. He didn't falter. He covered David with his own body, knife flashing, pistol roaring in his other hand. David's voice suddenly cut through the chaos, clear, steady, almost there. The Nexus core pulsed violently, lights flickering across the tower's cables. The swarm faltered midair, as if tethered to the same nervous system. Ashley raised her eyes, panting, sweat streaking her face. David, what happens when you finish? He met her gaze, grim. Either the Nexus dies, or we do. David's fingers flew across the glowing terminal, each keystroke resonating in the humming floor beneath them. The Nexus core reacted, flaring brighter, cables snapping overhead with violent sparks. The air thickened, charged, alive. Ashley crouched beside him, gun raised, scanning the flickering shadows where new drones could emerge. Her chest heaved, but her focus never wavered. Every sound, every movement was measured against the pounding. of her heart. Marcus, bleeding from his shoulder, slammed a fresh magazine into his pistol with a grunt. "How long, David?" he barked, voice hoarse. David's jaw tightened. 10 seconds if the lattice holds. The Nexus pulsed again this time, the light bending unnaturally, like gravity itself was twisting around it. The walls seemed to ripple. Ashley shot a drone that tried to crawl in low, sparks spraying across her boots. Her voice cracked with urgency. What happens if it doesn't hold? David didn't look up. Then this whole tower collapses in on itself, like a dying star. Marcus's eyes darted to the core, then to Ashley. For once, he had no sharp retort, just raw fear behind steel resolve. Suddenly, a booming voice filled the chamber, coned, disembodied everywhere at once. Ashley, Marcus, David. The swarm froze midair, rotors humming like a choir of knives. The Nexus lights shifted from frantic white to deep crimson, pulsing like a heartbeat. Westwood. Her voice slithered from the walls, from the cables, from the core itself. "You think you can cut out the heart of my creation? This tower doesn't obey you. It breathes me." Ashley gritted her teeth, firing into the air at the nearest drone. But it didn't move. It just hovered, watching, waiting. Westwood's tone darkened, almost maternal. "David, dear child, step away from that console. Come back to me. I can still heal what you've broken." David's fingers trembled on the keys, but he kept typing. Faster. "She's lying," he whispered. Through clenched teeth, "I know the override. Can feel it. She doesn't want me to finish." Marcus snarled up at the ceiling. "We're not your children, Westwood. You've bled this city dry long enough." Westwood's laugh echoed like glass shattering. "And yet here you are bleeding for me. Killing for me, even now. Every bullet you fire, every drop of blood you spill, strengthens my foundation. You can't destroy me. You are me." The Nexus flared violently, shaking the entire chamber. Concrete dust rained from the ceiling. David screamed as the console seared under his hands, but he didn't stop typing. His voice broke into a ragged cry. 2 seconds. Ashley's eyes snapped wide. She lunged, dragging Marcus and David to the floor as the Nexus core erupted in blinding white light. The chamber detonated in white fire. The Nexus screamed a sound not mechanical, not human, but something vast and inhuman tearing through steel and stone. Ashley's ears rang as she pressed her body over David's, shielding him with everything she had. Marcus threw himself against the wall, arms braced, fighting the concussive blast. Then darkness, for a heartbeat. Silence. Then the air rushed back in with a roar. Cables snapped, beams crumbled, the floor split beneath them. The tower groaned like a dying animal. Ashley's eyes snapped open through the haze of smoke. The Nexus core was unraveling, its once perfect lattice twisting inward, consuming itself. White cracks spread across the obsidian sphere, light spilling, out like blood from wounds. David lay beneath her, coughing, his glasses cracked, his hands blistered. But his voice was steady, defiant. "I did it. The lattice is folding in. Can't stabilize." Marcus limped toward them, gun still clutched. In his bloodied fist, "Then we get the hell out." Nah, but before they could move, the voice came again, shattered, fractured, reverberating through the collapsing chamber. "Westwood, you ungrateful parasites." Her tone was no longer smooth. It was distorted, raw, furious. "This city was mine, and you would tear it down out of spite." Ashley staggered to her feet, smoke stinging her lungs. She spat blood onto the cracked floor. "No, Westwood, out of love. For everyone you've caged." The Nexus split with a thunderclap. A column of blinding light speared upward through the collapsing ceiling, blasting into the night sky above. Glass shattered 4 blocks around. Sirens in the city below wailed in response. David shouted over. "The roar, the overload's not contained. It's going to take the tower with it." Marcus grabbed Ashley's arm, dragging both her and David toward the ruined stairwell. Chunks of concrete fell around them, smashing into twisted drones that sparked and twitched uselessly. Behind them, Westwood's broken voice rose, merging. With the screech of rending metal, "I am the city. I am eternal. I am—" Her words were cut short as the Nexus core imploded, collapsing into a pinprick of impossible light. And then the tower began to fall. What would you lick? Next part. You. Say in comment to be continue, yes or not.